The Nasdaq just crashed into correction territory, and the Dow followed right behind it. 5 straight weeks of losses on the S&P, the longest losing streak since the last inflation crisis. Oil blew past $115 a barrel. The fear index, the VIX, shot above 30. And consumer gasoline up 40% since January. Investors are running, not walking, out of tech stocks and consumer discretionary. You know what the analysts at Bloomberg are saying? That we have broken through a key technical support level and positioning is not extreme enough to signal a bottom. In plain English, there is still room to fall. A lot of room. But here is the thing. This is not just about markets. Today we are going to talk about a war that has already cost $25 billion in 4 weeks. A secret double summit in Beijing that could reshape the global order, and a fertilizer crisis that might decide what you pay for bread this summer. Stay with me, because the most important part is coming at the end. Before we dive in, if you find this kind of analysis valuable, hit that like button and subscribe. It genuinely helps more people see this video, because that is how the algorithm works. And if you want to go a step further, consider sponsoring the channel or using super thanks. We put real effort into research and fact-checking to make sure you are getting the truth, not recycled headlines. Every bit of support keeps this work independent. Now, Congress. The reaction to this war has split right down party lines, and honestly, it is almost comically predictable. Republicans are almost unanimously behind the operation. One senior Republican senator declared that for 47 years, America has been a victim of the Iranian regime, and finally there is a president willing to end it. Sounds decisive, right? But then you hear the other side. A prominent Democratic senator came out of classified briefings and said he was, quote, baffled because the briefings are extremely confused and chaotic in explaining the goals of this war. Baffled. After secret briefings. Think about that for a second. And here is the number that should concern every single American. The low estimate, the floor, for 4 weeks of this war is $25 billion. Gas prices have jumped from just under $3 to nearly $4 a gallon, the fastest spike in modern history. And when the president was asked when the Strait of Hormuz would reopen, his answer was, quote, that is just another day by Trump standards. You know what the most interesting part is? Nobody in the room laughed. Now let me take you to something that has never happened before. The president's visit to China, originally scheduled for the end of this month, has been pushed to mid-May because of the war. But here is where it gets really important. Almost immediately after that visit, the Russian president will arrive in Beijing. Chinese analysts have confirmed both visits are a done deal. This has never happened. The leaders of 2 of the world's most powerful nations visiting the Chinese president practically back-to-back. Beijing deliberately spaced the visits to avoid a media frenzy, but make no mistake, this is essentially a trilateral summit, and the order tells you everything. The American president goes first as the primary negotiator. The Russian president comes second on, as one analyst put it, a folding chair. Chinese experts are highlighting 3 things. First, the international situation is extraordinarily dangerous and needs stabilizing. Second, Beijing's role has grown beyond anything anyone predicted. And third, even if relations between Washington and Beijing warm up, the channel to Moscow stays open. When the Kremlin spent years talking about a multipolar world, they probably did not imagine a version where Russia is not one of the poles, but rather a magnet on someone else's refrigerator. And you think that is all? Let me tell you about NATO. For the first time ever, every single member state has hit the 2% of GDP defense spending target. European and Canadian defense budgets grew by 20%. The NATO Secretary General presented these numbers as a milestone. But, and this is the part nobody wants to hear, he immediately said it is not enough, not for the threats we face now. He specifically pointed to the missile threat from Iran and the broader destabilization of global shipping lanes. Here is the twist. The top German diplomat tied Europe's willingness to help secure the Strait of Hormuz directly to American commitments on Ukraine. No Ukraine deal, no Hormuz help. And the Europeans were not bluffing. That standoff played out in real time at the G7 foreign ministers meeting. European countries put a direct ultimatum to the American Secretary of State. You want us involved in securing the Strait of Hormuz? Guarantee that aid to Ukraine continues. He dodged the question. And then the German foreign minister said something remarkable. Quote, then do not ask us to participate in your war in the Middle East either. Other European nations backed him up. But wait, that is not all. While Washington hesitated, Ukraine quietly signed drone defense agreements with Saudi Arabia, a joint production deal, and with Qatar, a 10-year contract. Ukrainian technology is now protecting the skies of Gulf states. That is a completely new model. When American security guarantees wobble, smaller nations find other partners, and Ukraine, in the middle of its own survival fight, became one of those partners. Now here is where it gets personal for every American household. The blockade of the Strait of Hormuz is not just about oil. It is crushing the global fertilizer market. Prices for nitrogen fertilizers jumped nearly 20% in the first week of the war alone, a third of the world's urea. A critical fertilizer passes through that strait. Iran, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia are all top exporters. India, the world's second largest urea producer, is cutting production because it cannot get enough gas from the Middle East. And here is the really devastating part. American farmers are trapped. Fertilizer accounts for a quarter of their costs, and planting season has already started. Even if the strait reopened tomorrow, the first ships would not reach American ports until mid-April, and from there, getting supplies to farms in the Midwest, not before mid-May. For most farmers, that is too late. One industry veteran with over 2 decades of experience said he has never seen anything like it. When a war thousands of miles from Iowa decides what bread costs on your table, you know the world has changed. And speaking of no way out, military analysts are now saying the air campaign has failed to achieve its objectives. The regime did not fall, it consolidated. Iran has tightened its grip on the Strait of Hormuz and is now charging fees for ships to pass through. All remaining options involve ground operations, whether seizing enriched uranium, capturing a key oil export island, or taking control of islands near the strait. But every single one of these scenarios carries catastrophic risk for minimal strategic gain. The president cannot declare victory and walk away. Markets are falling, gas is rising, war spending is accelerating, and the midterm elections are starting to look like an existential threat for the ruling party. One independent analysis put it bluntly. Quote, there is no military exit from this conflict and Iran holds the stronger cards. When your only strategy is hoping for a miracle and your only timeline is one day by presidential standards is an eternity, you know you are in trouble. If you have made it this far, do me a favor. Drop a comment with your thoughts. Are we heading for a deeper crash, or is this the bottom? And do not forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss an update. Every story you just heard, every number, every quote, all of it took hours of digging, cross-referencing, and careful verification. That is what independent reporting demands. It is not glamorous work, but it matters. If you believe this kind of honest, no-spin analysis deserves to exist, your support makes it possible. A like costs nothing and tells the algorithm this content is worth sharing. A subscription means you will be here tomorrow when the next story breaks. And if you want to go further, sponsorship or super thanks directly fuels the research behind every episode. This is not a corporation. This is one voice trying to cut through the noise, and your being here, watching, commenting, sharing, that is what keeps it alive. Thank you, genuinely. I will see you in the next one.